Deep in the forest, one man sets out to build his winter-proof cabin using no power tools. But brute force is not enough out here. From building his own mechanical crane to engineering an ancient heating system, Bogdan has to invent his own solutions. With only his dogs for company, his plan is to create a permanent homestead in the wild before the autumn rains arrive. His first decision is the site. He chooses a sloped hillside and not the bottom of the valley, and this choice is strategic. When the winter snow melts, water runs downhill, and low ground would leave the build sitting in soggy soil, a paved courtyard, an outdoor hearth, and a thriving vegetable garden. But before any of that can happen, he must first raise the cabin walls. To build a strong cabin with the boulders, he needs mortar. First, he digs a mixing pit directly in the ground. He needs earth for the mix, but regular dirt is full of rocks and debris that will weaken the bond. To solve this, he builds a simple screening tool to filter the junk, letting only fine soil fall through. Mixed with water, this smooth dust becomes a rock-solid cement. With the mortar ready, the foundation work can begin. The largest stones go in first, which will bear the full load of the cabin. For the corners, he looks for large stones with flat faces and squared shapes, turning the corners from weak points into structural pillars. Excess mortar can soak rainwater between the stones and weaken the wall over time. To fix this, he ties dry twigs together to craft a simple brush. By scrubbing the joints, he leaves only solid stone exposed, forcing the rainwater to slide right off. He is building during the dry season. This is a calculated move to take advantage of the firm ground, aiming to raise the walls and roof before the autumn rains arrive 1 month from now. Dragging boulders across the forest floor is one thing, but as the walls rise, Bogdan hits a hurdle. He now has to lift stones weighing up to 700 pounds chest high. Brute force is no longer enough. He needs primitive engineering. Using 2 trees as the frame, he builds a primitive crane. For the boom, he uses a debarked green pole, just flexible enough to take the strain without snapping. But the secret is the counterweight. A sack full of rocks is tied to one end, so the stone on the other side can be lowered with control. Bogdan is not just building walls, he is building around a traditional Slavic heating system called the pech. Instead of letting the fire send its heat straight up and out, the pech forces that heat through a horizontal channel first, so the masonry absorbs it before it reaches the vertical chimney. Heat traveling through the tunnel will warm the masonry first, and then release that heat slowly back into the cabin. He fills the tunnel with stone and mortar to build thermal mass. One end will house the fire, the other will connect to the chimney, and the top will be closed over with flat slabs. His bed will be placed on top, and every fire will warm both the bed and the cabin for hours. The heavy stone traps the heat perfectly, but a solid stone wall also means total darkness. To bring in natural light, he wants an arched opening in the wall. But building a structural stone arch requires immense time and precision. Instead, Bogdan finds a fallen tree whose natural curve already matches the span. This is called compass timber. By using the trunk's natural shape and strength, he gets an instant arch and avoids the much harder job of building one from. Bogdan anchors a simple timber shelf above the fire. It is a practical addition, keeping his daily essentials warm and safely away from the damp floor. With the masonry complete and the first fire drawing perfectly, he can finally take a moment to rest. But the cabin is still open to the elements. The next phase of the build is the roof. But this project requires multitasking. He also plants a small vegetable garden so his future food grows while he works. And gives insects and decay a place to take hold. But the most vulnerable part is the part that will be buried into the ground. Raw wood buried in damp earth would quickly rot. To stop this, Bogdan relies on an ancient Japanese technique called yakisugi. The heat burns away the outer fibers and leaves behind a blackened carbon layer. That crust helps repel moisture, insects, and decay. While the fire does the slow work of sealing the post, Bogdan heads back into the trees to gather the roof's main wrap. This raw timber is highly irregular. Before the rafter can be lowered, Bogdan must first reshape the support log. He locks the new column in place, tying the entire skeleton together. But the rainy season is getting closer, so he must immediately close the roof. With the poles locked and forming the base layer of the roof, Bogdan wants to turn this wooden deck into a system that efficiently traps the heat and keeps the rain out. But before he can move on, the weather turns. As rain falls through the unfinished roof, work comes to a halt. Bogdan is forced to take shelter, facing the reality of off-grid construction. He must wait for the storm to pass. The rain was heavy, but the interior of the cabin didn't flood. When work finally resumes, he does not go straight to the roof insulation. The wooden roof can't be sealed without a way to safely channel the fire's smoke. He goes back to masonry, beginning work on the chimney. Still air inside the stalks and between the fibers, and that trapped air helps slow down heat loss. To help manage water, the roof has an inclination. At the lower edge, where the runoff will collect, Bogdan digs a drainage trench. It works by catching water from the roof and the hillside and carrying it away from the cabin. Digging the trench also supplies the material for the next roof layer. So far, the cabin has only been a project. Now, with the roof closed and the hearth burning, Bogdan can finally spend the night inside. But the build is far from over. Tomorrow, Bogdan expands the footprint. He will lay the interior floor, frame the outer porch, and engineer a dedicated kitchen bar. The shelter is ready. Now, the homestead begins. The next morning, he heads down to the creek looking for a key building material, one that will transform the cabin. If this place is going to work for daily life, he needs solid, flat surfaces instead of mud all around him. A dirt floor works only as long as the weather is kind. In this landscape, spring snowmelt saturates the ground, rain keeps the soil soft, and every trip in and out brings more mud back inside. He lays the slabs over a leveled bed of wet clay mortar, fitting each piece into the next like a puzzle. Now he has a stable, heat-resistant landing pad, where he can safely place the red-hot cookware moving straight from the flames. But inside, he has the opposite problem to solve. A cold stone bed would be miserable, but a bed directly over fire-heated masonry would be too hot. He needs something in between. He adds an intermediate buffer layer of mortar and wood. The masonry below can still store and release heat, but the wooden slices break that direct contact and regulate how the warmth reaches the sleeping surface. Since the kitchen counter works so well, Bogdan decides to repeat the idea inside and create another usable surface. Rain can blow straight through the walls. His next priority is to fully seal the cabin by closing up the open windows. He moves on to the rear window first. It is a small opening, but sealing it is the first step toward making the cabin weather-tight. With the windows in place, the cabin is finally starting to feel enclosed. But one opening still matters more than all the rest: the doorway. Little by little, the place is becoming more than a shelter. Outside, the land is already giving back. Potatoes come from the soil, tomatoes hang from the vine, and corn is ready on the stalk. By dusk, what began as a stone shelter is becoming a working homestead, but much is still missing. The windows and door came in handy during a windy night. With the structure finally sealed, Bogdan's focus turns to comfort and ergonomics. starting with basic furniture and a structured outdoor living space. Bogdan finds the right log and starts with the smallest furniture first. He starts by making seating for the new kitchen counter. But instead of building traditional chairs, he opts for simple, three-legged stools. Why limit the design to 3 legs when he has plenty of wood? The answer lies on the floor. On uneven ground, 4 legs will constantly wobble. 3 points of contact naturally adapt to any bumps or slopes, sitting perfectly firm every time. While the stools are light and easy to move, his next project is the exact opposite. He heads out to find the right log for a proper bench, the biggest piece of furniture he has built so far. For Bogdan, this bench marks a turning point. He can finally start the project he has been waiting for since day one: a green front porch. Oriented exactly to face the sunset, he has designed this outdoor space with a single purpose: a dedicated area to finally rest at the end of the day, alongside his 2 dogs. The bench goes against the stone wall for a reason. All day, the masonry takes in warmth from the sun and stores it. By evening, it gives that heat back slowly. Placed against that thermal mass, the bench becomes its own small pocket of comfort. The bench is complete, but the space around it still feels raw. Right now, it is only a muddy edge outside the cabin. Bogdan wants something more deliberate, more livable, more like a true porch. For a start, he needs a fence. That alone will begin to turn the area from a muddy patch into something that feels more like a balcony. An improvised fire chars the bases of the fence posts, while Bogdan digs the post holes. Without power tools, this build has been a slow, methodical sequence of digging, lifting, and tying. And in that slowness, Bogdan has experienced something people rarely get anymore. The modern world is built on convenience and immediate results. But this environment dictates its own pace. Out here, there are no shortcuts to comfort, and every bit of progress has to be earned by hand. As the last pickets are tied in place, the feeling of the space changes immediately. What was open ground now begins to feel enclosed and intentional. The only thing left is to add a walkway firm enough to survive the routine of daily life and a layer of soft, living grass to eventually walk barefoot across the yard. While building, Bogdan had an idea. He noticed the heavy beam over the kitchen can be strong enough to carry more than the roof. It could carry a swinging chair too, a quiet place to sit. But to stay outside after dark, the homestead needs light. Bogdan wants his cabin to stay useful after sunset, so he builds a simple lighting system. But before daylight is gone, he has one last fundamental task to finish the cabin. Bogdan goes out to harvest the grass as living sod. He is not just gathering greenery, he is cutting out whole layers of rooted ground he can. The cabin no longer reads as something imposed on the land. It has begun to blend into the forest. And in a way, so has Bogdan. Working out here in isolation for so long, with only his four-legged companions, is a heavy test. There is nowhere for the mind to hide. No noise to disappear into, no modern stream of interruption. There is only the physical work and the long silence between each sound. For centuries, this valley has followed its own ancient rhythm. Seasons arrive, trees fall, and the earth reclaims whatever is left behind. When Bogdan first stood on this ground, he was just a visitor passing through. Now, he has taken the raw, chaotic materials of the forest and bound them together with time and sweat, creating his own perfect spot to detach in nature. Away from everyone and everything, a place of absolute peace.